All right, so we got another one of these discussion arguments where we're just going to go through and talk about the nuances of this specific argument. Um, I don't really feel like I need to give too much of a explanation about what we're doing because I'm sure you guys have seen some of the other videos at this point. But we're just going to explain this argument. We are then going to go through and give like values and value criterions that could be ran with it, then rebuttals, and then my personal thoughts on the argument. My personal thoughts on the argument. So, without further ado, let's actually get into the argument itself. So this is one that is going to be ran on the affirmative side, as the other ones that we've already addressed today. And this one is just essentially talking about how lethal autonomous weapons are too expensive. There's really not a whole lot to talk about under this argument, which makes me feel like we're not going to hit those 10 minutes I generally try to get to in this video. So maybe we'll just kind of discuss general topic things at the end. But essentially, the whole point of this argument is that there's really not a whole lot to say. Lethal autonomous weapons are too expensive. That's the warrant. It's like you can just provide different pieces of evidence on like what we have currently leading up to it. You can talk about how expensive it is to continue to seek like AI and stuff and all these different points. And then you're just going to like impact that out with being like, wow, we're pulling this with stuff from the other parts of the budget, which so like we could be using this money better elsewhere. This one is. I honestly don't think that this is going to be ran on cases too much, and if they do, then probably not in a really great debate, or like I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, and there is some way you can spin this in a super like impressive way. But personally, it doesn't seem super strong to me. We'll talk about that more later. But I think this is going to be less of a case argument and more of like something that someone will bring up in a rebuttal speech. But regardless, we'll still talk about it a little bit. So, but yeah, that's the whole idea behind it. Is it's just like we can be putting this money into other places. So the impact would be, it's like, oh, well, we could be funding like healthcare or something. I don't know, whatever impact you want. Which is like the only reason why I can see this being used in a case, because sometimes people like to like present a harm that they can solve with so to be unique, they'll talk about how like we need healthcare or something. That's not like probably not a great example, but then it's like, oh, we can solve this issue by affirming the resolution because then we can pull funding from the military and put it in this place. And it's like that's what really that like you can't guarantee that that's going to happen when you affirm the resolution, but people still like to argue that. So like I think that might be where we see this in the case. That's the only reason I think that it might pop up. Um, Otherwise, like I said, there's really not a whole lot of like to explain on the actual warrant and impact. So even though we've only been talking about it for a minute or two, I think we should probably just move into the value criterion. Quite honestly, so this is going to be surprise, another consequentialist framework. If you're just doing generally, it's too expensive. Then it's like, well, like no, none of that weird like impact connections that we talked about. Then really you it's going to be based off of what impact specifically and how you think you can help people by taking money from the defense budget. But probably going to be things such as life once again, or just general. I think this is one where you should definitely hit just general welfare, because if you get too specific with your value criterion here, then if your opponent can just prove that you don't access like so let's say that you're arguing that the money's going to be put towards healthcare, right? That's your argument. So then you're going to be like, oh, I can protect lives. But then if your opponent like can be like, well, we don't know where the money's going to go, then you're still getting like screwed over then, because you might not be accessing your value criterion. But if you just talk about general welfare, then you can like provide like healthcare as an example. But it's like, well, even if the money doesn't go to healthcare, like it's still going to probably go to something more beneficial to society than the defense budget, because like what is the defense budget doesn't really help us anymore, right? Like it's just gone to a point where it's so bloated that it doesn't actually provide anything meaningful to the American people. It just kind of is what we do to like be the big boys in the military and be better than everyone else. So there's that. So that's why I really don't think that you should do anything else besides just general like maximizing well-being, because you can just be like, oh, we're doing something that's better for the people anyway. And I really don't think there's too much to talk about on the value criterion here. Otherwise, moving on to just general rebuttals, the big one here is just going to be like, first off, weighing, because every single argument that you're running should have bigger impacts than this. That's why this one I don't think is going to be ran like on case at all, because the impacts are just so small and sad. It's like, who cares if it's too expensive? Like, legitimately, if you're like, I'm going to protect people's lives, then there's not a price on that. Like, in what world is the cost going to be something that we weigh on? So, like, that would be the biggest thing. But also, I don't want to go into a round just trying to do weighing arguments. So, my other thing would be, we can talk about, oh, we don't know if it's going to go to healthcare, but I don't know if they're not going to put it in the defense budget anyway. I feel like if we just ban lethal autonomous weapons, then it's just going to lead to like spending on the defense budget and other like weapons. It was like what we talked about under the arms race argument. It's like, yeah, you might stop the arms race here, but you think you're just gonna stop it for everything? Are you kidding me? Like, the United States is just gonna, well, not us specifically. I just use us because that's always the first example I think of, obviously. But it's like they're just gonna do what they want, and like if they want to spend money on defense, then they're gonna spend money on defense. And if you really think that banning lethal autonomous weapons is going to change that, you're a fool. The United States, if they want to spend trillions of dollars on defense, they're gonna spend trillions of dollars on defense. That's just how it is. So that'd be my biggest thing is just you don't solve the issue. Like, insolvency claims are pretty good anyway, because like there's no link against this. It's like, yeah, they're expensive. What do you want me to say? That they're going to become less expensive with time? I don't really buy that. You could potentially say that this would encourage, if you really wanted to try and like turn it, you could be like, well, nuclear weapons are more expensive. I don't even know if that's true. I'm just assuming it is because, like, surprise, surprise, I don't know what it costs to make a nuclear weapon. I don't know how to make them, so, but I would assume that they're probably more expensive than like drones and stuff. So it's like, okay, well, so if we make less nuclear weapons because we now have like these, then we're still actually saving money in the long run. But then you have to prove that we're gonna like stop making nuclear weapons, which is like you might just be able to like throw out as common sense. But then if I was on the other end and I was responding to these rebuttals, I would just be like, once again, how do you know that we're gonna stop making like nuclear weapons if we have lethal autonomous weapons? Answer: you don't, and we probably won't. So it's just like, I really think that the solvency claim and also just weighing is really like the biggest things here. God, this argument is kind of, so yeah. I guess might as well just move into my general thoughts on this argument. Spoiler alert: I think it's dumb. It was like what I said earlier. These low magnitude impacts don't make sense to me whenever you're in like one of these super high magnitude topics. It's just like this argument isn't even like the worst ever. Like, it has standings behind it. That one solvency claim does kind of like make it bad. So like even if this was a low impact like topic, I don't know that I would hit it or like run this one specifically. But it's just like you have so many better choices. Just choose any of them. Anything that isn't this argument is going to be better for you because it's gonna have better impacts. Like that's all there is to say. Like, if you can have high magnitude impacts, go for it. So that's why I personally would not run this argument. I know that now, like we've done 4 videos, and in every single one except for the first one, I'm like, no, awful argument. But we'll hit some better ones as we go down the list, hopefully. But yeah, like I said, personally would not use this one. Would not recommend that other people use it. Like if someone starts reading this argument in round, I'm gonna start feeling immediately more confident about the round. Like the second they start talking about the cost of lethal autonomous weapons, it's like I feeling like I'm gonna come out of this one on top, just because like if you're choosing to run these arguments, I'm not going to think very highly of like your performance in the round. Maybe that sounds really cocky. I'm just the type of person where I'm like, if you start like faltering, it's gonna make me feel better and like be a better debater. I should just like this isn't the point of this discussion anyway. But anyway, so that was all to just say, don't run this argument. Just don't. But otherwise, we did manage to get just barely up to 10 minutes, so that was lucky. So I think I'm just going to cut this one here, and we don't got too much more to talk about. Obviously, we'll have a couple more of these coming out pretty soon. So, but as always, I hope this video was educational, and I wish you guys good luck in all your rounds.